Okay, so let's continue on with the rest of these hormones and glands. So our next gland that we're going to look at is the thyroid gland. Now, on your body, if you find your voice box, a little bit below that is where your thyroid gland is located. And this kind of this butterfly-shaped gland right there. All right, and the thyroid gland secretes two hormones. The main hormone it secretes is thyroid hormone. All right, and what thyroid hormone does is it regulates our basic metabolic rate. So if our metabolism starts to go down, we're going to secrete thyroid hormone. Our metabolism will go up from that. All right. The next one it secretes is calcitonin. Calcitonin helps to regulate our blood concentrations of calcium ions. And how it does this is that calcitonin stimulates osteoblasts. So osteoblasts make bone, so they're going to take calcium out of the blood. All right, and it also causes our kidneys to get rid of phosphate ions. All right, so, and lastly, it inhibits osteoclast. Osteoclast causes a breakdown of bone, so breaking down bone would release calcium into the blood. So its overall effect then is to decrease blood calcium ion levels. The next gland is the parathyroid gland. So this is showing the backside of the thyroid hormone, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of these parathyroid glands. You can have anywhere from 4 to 8 of these. And it only secretes one hormone, and that is known as parathyroid hormone, coincidentally enough. It also helps regulate our blood calcium ion levels by doing the opposite of calcitonin. So it inhibits osteoblasts and stimulates osteoclasts. So by stimulating osteoclasts, that's going to break down bone, releasing calcium ions into the blood. So our blood calcium ion levels go up. All right, so let's look at the next. Gland here. So the next gland is the adrenal gland. So there's the adrenal gland right there. And so we're only going to look at a few hormones that are secreted from this. If you take the adrenal gland, they sit above the kidneys. But if you take that gland and you cut it, you have a cortex area and a medulla area. Now on this slide, this is the cortex, this is the medulla. All right, so medulla is the inner portion. So what is secreted from the medulla is it produces epinephrine and norepinephrine, which increase the heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, and so on. Also decreases digestive activity. All right. So in the cortex area, I'm only going to look at two hormones here. One is aldosterone. Aldosterone is secreted, and what it does is it causes our kidneys to conserve sodium ions, and by conserving sodium ions, we retain more water. That's its overall effect. It also will cause us to excrete or get rid of more potassium ions. The other hormone secreted out of here is cortisol. Cortisol is also a stress hormone, and it's going to regulate our glucose metabolism. It also inhibits protein synthesis, and it influences fat metabolism by releasing fat molecules into the blood, because, you know, if you're being chased by a bear, you want a lot of energy molecules in your blood so you can use those. All right? All right, next is our pancreas. So let's move to the pancreas here. Here's showing the pancreas there. Here it is by itself. It literally sits below our stomach. So on this picture, the stomach would be right here. Two main hormones are secreted from the pancreas. Now, if we look inside the pancreas, this is a slide of the pancreas. This is showing these islets of Langerhans, or pancreatic islets. Those are the parts of the pancreas that secrete hormones. This darker area are called the acinar cells, and they secrete digestive enzymes. So let's look at what's secreted by the islet of Langerhans. So two types of cells in here. There's actually a third, but we're only going to look at two of these. The first are called alpha cells. They secrete glucagon. Now, what glucagon does, we secrete glucagon when our blood glucose levels are low. So what glucagon does then is it causes our liver to break down glycogen into glucose and also convert non-carbohydrates into glucose, so our blood glucose levels will go up. All right? So its overall effect is to increase our blood glucose levels. So this is what you would secrete in between meals. All right? Next is insulin. Insulin is secreted when our blood glucose levels are high. And so what insulin's main thing that it does is it causes our body cells to take in that glucose. And by taking in that glucose, that's going to lower our blood glucose levels. All right? It also causes our liver to convert glucose into glycogen, the storage form of glucose, and prevent non-carbohydrates from being converted into glucose. All right? So it's secreted when our blood glucose levels are high, and its overall effect is to lower blood glucose levels. Next is the pineal gland. So if I go to this picture, this arrow doesn't actually go to it, but our pineal gland is somewhere right around there. All right? And what our pineal gland does is it secretes melatonin. Now, melatonin is a hormone that controls our circadian rhythm, our wake-sleep cycle. All right? So while we start to sleep, our melatonin levels go up, and they peak about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they start to go down. All right? So we secrete this while we're sleeping, is essentially. All right? One of the things about melatonin is it's inhibited by light. So if you sleep in a darkened room, you have a tendency to sleep later, and that's because your melatonin levels are continuing to stay high. You sleep in a room in which light can get in, your melatonin levels are going to be lower because that light's going to inhibit your melatonin production, and then you're going to wake up earlier. All right? Next is a thymus gland. So this is showing the thymus gland there. Our thymus gland produces thymosins, which cause a production of these cells called T lymphocytes, which are immune cells. Lastly, our reproductive organs here. So the ovaries are going to secrete estrogen, progesterone, and the testes are going to produce testosterone. And we'll talk about those hormones later this semester. Stop.